During a conversation with a elderly friend, we started talking about a very particular writerly fear, and that is the fear of revision, which of course always strikes us when we're in the middle of the first draft. We are writing, we are working on our story, a word, a paragraph, a page at a time, and sometimes we become frozen by the fear of all the work we're gonna have to put in later. And I was thinking about this, and especially now that I'm back on writing, I was reminded of the little tools, the little secret weapons that I use to push through the first draft as quickly as I can and as effectively as I can. And today, I wanted to take a moment to just go over the two little tools that I use. I use, of course, a myriad of things, but these two are key. They are the immediate two. If I had to give you two pieces of advice, it would be these two. For creating a first draft where you can minimize that fear of revision. Revision is always going to be hard. Revision is always going to be daunting. That I don't think can change. But I think there are things you can do during the first draft. Not to make your writing polished, but to make it the best it can be so that when revision comes, you can analyze the entirety of it, cut what needs to be cut, and add what needs to be added. The first one is one of my favorites, and it's something that we can only describe as brackets. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of a sentence and thinking to yourself, what's that word I'm looking for? What's that word that means that thing, but not in that context? What is that word? At this moment, some of you might be feeling a very particular sensation in your chest. A drive, a desire to open up a new tab and try to find what that word is. And I cannot tell you what a terrible idea that is. I don't know about you, but I know myself. And I know that I am a little cheat. And that given the opportunity to open up the browser to look up something, will most likely end up with me checking Twitter, checking YouTube. Maybe there's something new on there. Maybe there's a new video by my favorite YouTuber there. Maybe my friends finally got back to me on Discord, and the next thing you know, you have wasted a whole lot of time. You have lost all momentum. It's like one moment prior, you were running a marathon at full speed, and then you decided to stop on the spot. That's no good. Let me tell you something, that is no good. And over years of falling into that pitfall, I decided to create a little something. And I call that brackets. If at any point in the writing you find yourself without the knowledge, missing a piece of information, unable to remember a word, forgetting a particular date, instead of stopping, instead of breaking all momentum, because building momentum in writing is the hardest thing, and the easiest to break. Instead of stopping, just write in brackets what you're meaning to say. One of my favorite ones from recently was me forgetting the word for when two people are training with each other to fight with weapons. And I just wrote training with weapons, and I kept writing. I wrote training with weapons between brackets, indicating to my future self that that's what I meant to say, and I move right on along. The word that I was looking for was sparring. Some of you might be familiar with a different version of this, which I think came from a pep talk in NaNoWriMo, I forget, but it was called elephant. And the purpose of that was that whenever you forgot a word or something, you would just write elephant in all caps. And while I found it to be particularly charming, I ended up finding that it was kind of confusing at the end when months later, Revision Max would be reading over the manuscript and thinking, what is this elephant supposed to mean? What word was supposed to go in here? And scratching my head at it. And I just realized that the best fix for that is just to give your future self context. If you can't remember the word for sparring, just write what you're thinking about. If you can't remember the date, just put in brackets the date that you're thinking about. If you don't remember a particular element of a story, or if you have just forgotten the name of that city your character traveled through in book 2, just put city from book 2 in brackets. And you keep on writing. And that's one. What about the second one? Something I call G-Notes. And it's called G-Notes because the G stands for global. how do I take care of notes when I'm writing the first draft? I know that it can be incredibly daunting, especially if you haven't done this, to leave notes for your future self in the actual manuscript. But I would like to inspire you with all of my heart to try and actually leave little notes for your future self. I do writing by hand, so I always write them in the margins. And my general format for notes is that whenever I'm in the middle of writing, whenever I'm writing the first draft, and I become self-conscious about something, or I think that I made a mistake, or I think that I might have actually forgotten to mention something, what I do is that I don't stop writing. I don't stop to go and look if I actually made that mistake. I don't stop and actually fix that problem on the spot. What I do is that I go to the margins, I write the chapter number that I think the problem is, or if it's a manuscript-wide issue, I write the letter G for global, hyphen, and then whatever the note is. An example of a G note could be something like G hyphen, make sure that in every description of the main character that their hair is indeed brown and not black. It's very easy, especially if you're writing a really long novel, to start realizing the mistakes you may or may not have made during the entirety of the first draft. And that's why just writing out the notes. And someone out there may say, but Max, if it's a small change, can't they just go and fix it? I honestly think, from my experience, that you're better off just writing down the note and to continue on writing than stopping. Why? Because momentum is the easiest thing to destroy, and you actually don't know. You don't have the context to know if that thing you think is a problem is actually a problem. As someone who was editing recently and going through a list of like 25 plus G notes that all read things such as like, does chapter 3 actually make sense? Does the reveal actually make sense? Is chapter 7 just completely broken? And then reading over them and reading over the manuscript and thinking and realizing chapter 3 wasn't a mess and chapter 7 was certainly not broken. Sometimes our worries get the best of us. I think the key though is to just write them down. I think you're better off just writing that little note, even if you're not sure if it's a problem or not. Because I mean, after all, if you have a note in your manuscript that reads chapter 3 hyphen, does it make any sense? When you make it to chapter 3, you will look at it with very critical eyes to make sure that everything does indeed make sense. And by now you should kind of notice this flow, or at least the flow that I take when I'm writing. I tell the story as effectively as I can, I portray the things I see in my mind in as much detail as I can, and if I don't remember a particular thing, I put it in brackets with a summary of what I'm meaning to say, and I move on. If something comes up, if I become self-conscious about the writing, if I am downright certain that I forgot to describe the location, because I always forget to describe what locations look like, I just make a note of it. Chapter 2, describe the main character's room. At the end of it all, if I can leave you with one piece of wisdom, is to focus on the process at hand. If the thing that matters right now is to write that book, write it. Develop the tools. Take the ones I gave you today, modify them, analyze them. Toss them if they don't work for you. Find the tools that enable you to write without losing momentum, and push all the way through. Again, revision is scary, but it will always be scary. And what do we do with scary things? Well, we face them head on. Hi there, my name is Max, also known as OCRemix, and I do these writing advice videos twice a week on YouTube. If you have a topic or an idea for a subject you would like me to cover in a future video, let me know in the comments down below. I also would like to let you know that these videos here are brought to you thanks to my patrons. Patreon.com/OCRemix is the #1 place to go to support me and what I do for as little as $1 a month. $1 you get to watch all of my videos a week before they go live on YouTube, and you get to have your name on the end screen of these videos. Which reminds me, I want to give a big shout out to A. Howard, Amelia, Angela, Brenda, Harriet Holman, Irina Phoenix, as well as Joe, Luki, Mark Maruska, Pat Eichenson, Rain Misoa, and Soul Muse. For those of you in the middle of writing, and to those of you in the middle of revision, keep on going, keep on making those words better, and keep on building word by word, paragraph by paragraph, page by page. Keep on building that story. Keep on.